Welcome to WonderCon at Home 2020. My name is Ken Choy, and I am very excited to get to talk to 2020 debut book authors. Yes, the publishing industry, the book industry is up and running, and I hope all that's going on right now is inspiring you to pick up a book, read, or maybe even write one of your own. So I should clarify that two of the authors' books were released during the stay-at-home orders. Two more are slated to be released during the summer, and one actually was pushed back to February. So the authors are here to talk about that. They're amazing books and more. Let me switch to gallery view so you can see everyone. Welcome Julie Abe, Jessica Kim, Namina Forna, and Suzanne Park. Hi, everyone.
Hi
Hi.
there.
So congratulations on your success. No matter what's going on right now, no one can take that away from you. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am going to spend a little time in depth talking to each author, and then we'll have a group kind of roundtable discussion afterwards. So we'll begin with Jessica Kim.
Hi, Ken. How are you?
Good. So Jessica, you have been all over the internet. You're like the internet queen right now.
Oh my.
Yeah. Does that tenacity? Is that one of your character traits?
Yeah. I think I'm just pivoting and trying to find my readers where they are with what I have, and so if that's the internet right now, I guess I'm all over it.
Was there a common misconception that you had or that are among young writers that once you're published, you're set to go? You don't have to do anything.
I don't know about that. I think, especially because my book happened to come out, it came out in March 17th. So right as everyone started sheltering in, it published. And so I didn't really have much time to kind of pivot or figure out what to do. And so we just kind of hit the ground running. And any time I was able to connect with either a bookseller, a librarian, or another author, I basically just said yes to everything. And so trying to just reach my readers, really. So yeah, it's kind of like uncharted territory. So we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go.
Do you feel more pressure once you got the nod that you're going to get published? That, oh my God, I have to do this and I have to do that. Did you feel that?
No, not at all. I figured there was a marketing team and they would take care of everything and it would just be fine. But it wasn't until like the book tour got canceled and everything got canceled that I kind of had to like look around and say, okay, well, what can I do? Who can I collaborate with? I need to find my readers. And so that was when I just kind of kicked it into high gear. But I was truly just relying on Penguin Random House to kind of to arrange everything for me until things changed.
Well, taking control of your career, you're not a stranger to taking control. You were actually an elementary school teacher, yes?
That's right. Yeah, I was educator for 10 years and I taught in public schools in Southern California. I taught 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. So, yeah.
Was that a selling point for agents or publishers that you can say, hey, this is my audience. I know how to talk to them?
No, not really. I don't think it really came up. I think in retrospect, people say, oh, that makes sense, but it was definitely after the fact.
Well, tenacity also runs in your character, Yumi. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So my book is called Stand Up Yumi Chung, and it's a middle grade novel. Like I said, it released last month, and it's for readers 8 to 12 is the target range. But honestly, some adults have been really some of my biggest fans. So it's about 11-year-old Yumi Chung. She's really shy and kind of awkward, and she's having a tough time making friends at her fancy private school. But the thing that gives her escape and the thing that she loves more than anything is stand-up comedy. The only problem is her parents are not into it. So they would much rather Yumi cut it out and prepare for this big exam she has coming up to secure a scholarship so she can continue going to her fancy private school. So it's like a fun, a really fast-paced adventure story about how Yumi accidentally steals someone's identity and gets kind of tangled up in this web of lies, and she ends up kind of living this double life against her parents' wishes, pursuing the things she loves more than anything, which is comedy. So it also has like a lot of second generation immigrant children themes. So for a lot of Asian American rep and some of the challenges we face when the culture of our parents clash with American culture, and how we feel kind of in the middle of that hyphen. So yeah, it's a funny book, but it's also got a lot of heart, and yeah, that's my book.
When you were coming up with an idea, were you thinking, oh my God, what is the worst thing an
Oh,
Asian
yeah.
American kid could do to a family?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this was something I wanted to write about. It's actually kind of based on a lot of the feelings that I was having as I was getting more serious about becoming a writer. Even though I'm an adult, I have kids of my own, I think because of my Asian upbringing, part of me was very scared to pursue something creative. And we had been trained, just brainwashed, and it's been drilled into us to find something stable, do something that no one could take away from you, get a degree, be a professional, be a doctor, get an MBA, do those kind of things. And so for me to pursue this, pie in the sky idea of writing a book and, to take it seriously and really chase after this dream, it was a really tough sell even to myself. And so those like feelings of imposter syndrome, and those feelings of, can I do this? Do I have what it takes? Do they want to even hear from me? And is my story even something that America's ready for? Are very much the kind of things that Yumi deals with in this book. So you could say it's a little bit of therapy for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of like an offshoot of your life. Just put
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So when your family read your book, did they say, hey, that's part of, we did that. That's part of our life. Do you have anything like that in the book?
It's funny, when you're a reader, you don't recognize yourself. I was thinking, are they going to know? Are they going to notice? But I think they read in interviews, oh, this draws from this character, this draws from that character. And they kind of have this, oh, now I see. But it wasn't apparent to them initially. But yeah, there's a character in this book, Yumi's father, Mr. Chung. He's a small business owner. He owns a Korean barbecue restaurant in Koreatown that's kind of going through difficulties with gentrification, and they're losing a lot of customers. And through the middle of the story, no spoilers, but we learn that Mr. Chung, there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. And even Yumi doesn't know about some of the dreams that he's deferred so that he can support his family here in America. And so I think that draws a lot from my own family, and some of the things that I've experienced and learned from my parents long after the fact.
Family is not the only obstacle that Yumi is facing. There's some character flaw that she has to kind of remedy before the journey is done. Yes?
Yes. So Yumi is, she's 11 years old, and she hasn't really come into her own confidence yet, and she very much second guesses herself, and that doesn't just come with her comedy, but also just in her friendships. I feel like she really holds back because she's not sure if people will like her, and so she's very shy, and so she ends up eating lunch in the bathroom by herself for the entire first year of school at her new private school. So I think she feels like she has to be someone else, a new version of herself, for her to truly be her authentic self. And I think that's something she has to overcome. And through her journey, she realizes that she's enough just as she is.
Well, encouragement, especially self-encouragement, I mean, it's right there in the title, right?
Yes.
So that's a perfect segue. Thanks, Jessica. It's a perfect segue into Julie. Encouragement plays a lot in your book.
Yes, definitely it does.
Yeah, she's already, she's at a deficit because she's a half witch. Yes, so was that something that you experienced, that you were feeling kind of less than everyone else?
Right, right. So my book is Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch. This is the cover right here. And it's a story about a girl who is a pinch of magic. She's 12 years old, and she wants more than anything to become a witch. But she's not strong like the other witches and wizards. And if she doesn't pass her witches test by the time she turns 13, she's going to lose her powers forever. And so this actually, similar to Jess, it came up when I was writing. Like I was writing a different story at the time when I started writing Eva, and I never felt like my story was good enough or my writing was really good enough for it to become anything. Like I didn't think it would become a book. I didn't think get an agent. I had all these doubts, and even though I wanted to be hopeful, I realized like, hey, like I don't know if I can do this. But through that journey, I started writing Eva, and I wrote a character who, unlike me, believed in herself even when everything was going wrong. And through that, I sort of gained the confidence and courage to continue querying, to find an agent, and successfully get an agent, which is a huge milestone for me. And then from there, I get a book deal. So yes, it's a lot about being half magical, but also doing what you can with who you are.
Yeah, so guess what, Julie? A big giant did knock on your door and say, Julie, not only a wizard, but you're an author as well.
I'll take that.
So when you were growing up, were you
Mhm.
feeling that you were kind of like, is that what Eva is feeling? That she's kind of like neither here nor there, or what is she going through as a kid with she only being a semi witch?
So she actually didn't get magic until very late, but I think a lot of it drew from my upbringing because I was born in Japan. I grew up in the US. So I was neither Japanese enough, but also not American enough because people would be like, oh, where are you from? Not like, oh, I'm from Northern California. They'll be like, where are you really from? And I'll be like, well, I guess, I was born in Japan, so I'm really from there. Um, but then I wouldn't know. I would I had some things that were like American. I know the culture really well, and some things are Japanese. I would know the culture really well, but I wouldn't know everything of one culture perfectly, having grown up in both places. So I think that also ties into her being half this, half that, and not fully one thing or another.
Are those the kind of themes that you enjoy as a reader?
Um, I would, as a reader, I think I enjoy stories about hope and overcoming things, no matter who you are, what you start out as, but just going for goals. So yeah, I think so.
From reading your materials, I know that you're a fangirl, right? Is Studio Ghibli your ultimate?
Um, oh, that's tough. So there's a animation studio called PA Works, which does beautiful art. So it really depends. There's a lot.
So
Uh,
it's not Harry Potter.
Harry Potter is amazing too. I would say yes. I grew up with Harry Potter, so can't say no to Harry Potter either.
So you actually have some Ghibli aspects to your book, yes?
Yes. So I would say people often comp Eva to Kiki's Delivery Service because Flying Witch, Seaside Town, those two aspects really draw readers, and and give the idea of, oh, it's like Kiki's. So I think fans of Kiki may also enjoy Eva as well, which makes me really happy.
When you build these whimsical elements, such as in Studio Ghibli films, do you how do you go about building it? Do you just think, what is the weirdest thing that I can do, or do you base it with some kind of foundation?
So for me, I tried to create a world that felt natural in the fact that you don't have to stretch to understand the world, because it is a magical world, but it is also very much based on our real world, or based on things that people can understand without having to be like, oh, I need a dictionary to like understand what this terminology is about this magical world, or make it too technical. So I wanted to make it very accessible, And in terms of imagination, I wanted to find things that were fun, that readers would find fun and enjoy, or be like, oh, I want to eat that from this world, or oh, is that real or not? So one thing, for example, there's this fruit called cloudberry, which is like, in Eva's book, her father is a baker and makes it into a jam and stuff like that, makes into croissants. And it sounds very magical, but it's actually a real fruit. So I try to tie in real world with also, fantasy elements to make it fun.
Besides the underdog story, there's an element of the book's message, which is hope. Can you talk about what you wanted to get across with your book as far as hope goes?
Right. So for hope for Eva, what a little bit of a spoiler, but she faces a storm. And for me personally, that came back, that was from, I didn't realize the time when I was writing, but in 2011, I was living in Japan at the time, and I was with my grandma and my mother, and we were on a train coming back from a trip together. And I look out the window, I was in the train, and the train starts swaying. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, this train is derailing. Like, what's going on? And then when I looked outside the window, everything was swaying. And that was when I realized it was an earthquake. And when we tried to get the news, well, cell phone reception was really bad because everyone was on their cell phone trying to figure out what was going on too. But we realized it was like a 9.5 earthquake, or 9.0 earthquake off the coast of Japan. And just that sort of helplessness and not knowing what was going on and trying to help others and trying to get home, all while being in that state of confusion of, honestly, a great earthquake of that extent. That also inspired Eva's story as well. And so in that moment, that night, it was just, for me, my goal was to get my mom and my grandmother to safety. And I couldn't save the world, but in my dreams, I hoped, I could do more. And I think that played a part in Eva's story, where she tries to save her town and tries to do more to help the people that she cares about.
Despite all that, her so-called flaws or weaknesses, I guess she draws strength from that kind of deficit, yes?
Yes, absolutely. I think for Eva in particular, she understands that she's not the strongest, she's not the smartest, she's not the coolest, she doesn't win any races, but her efforts and her hope and the way she tries to support everyone around her, that's the biggest thing that she can provide with it to her town and to the people she loves.
Wonderful. So that's a perfect segue, thanks, Julie, to Namina's book. Yeah, conversely, for your character, strength is her flaw, or something that sets her apart from her community, yes?
Yes, definitely. My main character, Deka, is part of an elite group of women who are faster and stronger than regular human beings, and also they bleed gold. And because of this, people think that they're demons, and that is what sets Deka off on her adventure.
So when you talk about blood, there's always, for people of color, there's an underlying metaphor that we all connect with. Did you start your book thinking, I'm going to write this message and this is how I'm going to feed into that message?
No, so The Gilded Ones, this is my book, The Gilded Ones, by the way. It was a book that took like a sort of a long time to unfurl, and the character of Deka came first. So I was in undergrad when I first sort of dreamt her up. I started having these dreams about like this girl who's like going off into battle in gold armor. And from there, the pieces of the story had to follow along. Like the gold blood was like a later development because I swiftly realized that this was a story about female empowerment and also female oppression. And the reason why I chose gold for the blood is because in so many ways women are objectified, and like basically we're reduced to our monetary worth, and that's why I chose the gold.
So can you tell me what, so the image came first, the story came first. How did you work in that kind of message? Or was it, did you feel that it was there already?
So the character came first, but then the story came along, and with the story came the message. When I started thinking of the Gilded Ones, I was an undergrad. I went to Spelman College, which is like all female, and I was doing a lot of women's studies classes, and so it was sort of a natural development because I was at that point sort of like having all these questions about what does it mean to be a woman in today's society. And so it was a natural development, all these things weaving themselves into the story.
Was there ever a time that you wanted to say something, but it didn't fit into the story, or conversely, that the story didn't fit the message? How did you, first of all, did that happen? And secondly, how did you kind of remedy that if it did happen?
I am sure that it happened. And it, because like, you know, you go through so many rewrites, and really what it is kill your babies, you know, like if something like you as a writer, you are in service to the story and not the other way around. And so you truly have to like look at things and be like, okay, but is this the story that I'm telling? And if it doesn't fit, then you have to let it go.
Were there specific instances in your life that drove the story in particular?
Definitely. So I grew up in Sierra Leone, West Africa, and I grew up during the Civil War. And so like, I think, and I was lucky enough to escape like most of the stuff, but like growing up in that atmosphere of like fear and tension, like it really does leave a mark with you. And so when I came to America, I had to spend some time sort of unpacking, you know, what was my childhood. And like the time I truly started unpacking that was in undergrad. And that's really, I think, what led to the Gilded One. That's why I was having such, you know, lucid dreams about like this warrior woman, because I was like, you know, I had wished that there was like this savior who comes along. And then I realized, you know what, like you create the savior, you are the savior. So yeah.
When you world build, do you let your mind wander like a lucid dream? Is that your kind of method as far as trying to build a world?
So I have a couple of, the first thing is like all of my stories typically start off with a dream, and my dreams are always nightmares, but I enjoy them very much because I'm never in them. Like, so like I'm almost like a viewer watching something, horrible things happen to other people, and I'm like, oh, this seems like a good story, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, there that story is. But what I then do is like, okay, I have the kernel, but I just then start sort of reading obsessively anything that might have anything to do with the story that I'm writing. So like I'll wake up in the morning and read all sorts of articles like every day. And I think like that's the thing about world building is like you take so much from other sources. Like I draw a lot of my work from like watching Animal Planet videos because that's how you create animals and all that kind of thing.
Well, I actually heard that on another video of yours that you are a Potterhead. So yeah, you're a-okay in my game because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. So and definitely thanks, Namina. Suzanne knows that about me, that I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Declaration that Suzanne is part of my writing group, so we know each other, but she was the hardest person to come up with questions because I was like, how do I talk to Suzanne? So being part of a writing group, Suzanne, was that a necessary element to your writing?
I found that being part of any kind of writing community was much more helpful than just going at it by myself. I think my initial tendency was, let me just do this by myself. That's just who I am. I can do it solo. And then I realized this is not the kind of thing that needs to happen in isolation. So I remember before I joined our group, I had gone to other groups too. And sometimes what at least I found is that you need the right community as well. So the first group or two that I tried out, they just weren't quite the right fit. And then I ended up in your group where even though they weren't all writing novels, I think I'm the only person writing novels in our group. It was just a group that was helpful and was able to read things and give constructive feedback that was helpful and also provide support. And, you know, it was nice to have people both in your group, and also I have other writing like pools of people, I guess. They kind of go through the highs and lows with you. And I found, at least, especially in our writing group, that when you do hit some walls, they are there to remind you on how far you've come. And it's nice to hear that from people to keep encouraging you.
So conversely, encouraging you, do you ever feel as part of a writer group, not particularly mine, but do you just say in your mind, oh my God, shut the heck up, that the comments aren't applicable to your writing?
I think when you have people read your writing, and you'll see that with people who, even with the finished work, they read your book, you get all types of feedback. You know, and it's a matter of what type of feedback that you do think you wanted use to help you become a better writer. So when I do send my work out to our writing group plus or critique partners or beta readers, these are all people who look at your work at different stages. You know, some people are good at identifying inconsistencies in your timeline or plot holes, like something. So you killed off a character and all of a sudden they're back in chapter 9. Like, how did that happen? So you have to, you know, those are really helpful actually. So, and I really appreciate those spelling errors, you know, things like that. They're really useful. Then there's ones that are not completely subjective, but they require thinking of, how do I weigh this, and is it worth putting in the story or considering? And those are our character motivations, stakes, and the conflict. Sometimes it's some of those things you don't see, but somebody else sees a different way to look at it. And it may require a small change or a big change, but sometimes those are worth evaluating and deciding if that's helpful. And then there's just things that are creative choices. Like somebody will say, I love this character, I didn't like this character. And you know, you made the character or the scene or the setting a certain way for a reason. And then you have to really think, you know, is this something that I do want to change? That is an artistic choice. And then that's probably something I would say, yeah, shut up, I don't want to. I would probably say, thank you for your feedback, but I'll probably pass on that part. But I usually take, I've never not taken feedback from a person. Usually there's something in there that even if they said it a way that didn't quite gel, I do sit with it, and then I realize, oh, maybe actually they meant this, or I take it a step further or even dial it back and realize there's a thing that might resonate.
So all these arms of support, they help you feel less isolated as a writer?
Yes, I believe so. I think, again, I started off trying to do this on my own and didn't have any feedback from anybody, and it was pretty much a walking disaster. So I just, and then you learn. So you know that maybe you do need to see what people say and fold that into your work, and then also help others as well. So you exchange work usually, and then you know, you also provide feedback to others. So it's always a give and take thing. And I feel like I'm less isolated with a writing community for sure.
Well, definitely isolation and a need for connection is prominent in your book.
Yes. You mean first yes, this book. So in this book, you're right, the two characters, they are there is a theme of isolation and the need for connection. The main character, Nate Kim, he's at a private school where he's definitely the outsider when it comes to he's the scholarship kid, and all his friends are scholarship kids, but they are definitely feel that pressure of being a kid that is there on financial aid. And then you have his love interest, Kate. She is from a wealthy family, but she's extremely lonely. Her dad is always working, her mother passed away, and she finds Nate and connects with him, and he also connects with her. And with that special friendship that turns into maybe other things, they really find comfort in each other.
So you started out as a stand-up comic. How do you put comedy into something like zombie apocalypse?
Not easily. It's not as super funny to do a zombie or escape room and survivalist settings, but for me and what I'm trying to do, I like to take in the comedy usually comes from situational absurdities and observational humor. Mix that with nerdiness of zombies and survivalist competitions and things like that, and it's kind of the perfect match for finding comedy in that. I had an author that she blurbed my book, and then she had told me, as an aside, this just reminds me of these screwball comedies that you used to love when you're growing up. That just things keep happening and going wrong, and it gets more and more absurd. And I was like, yeah, I think maybe that was part of the inspiration of writing my book. I just like putting these regular people in these extraordinary circumstances, and then keep fanning the flames and see how things can get worse.
Yeah, that's prominent in both your books. You have Loathe At First Sight coming out in the summer still, right?
Yes, this book.
Yeah.
Yes, my adult book. Yes, in that book, she, the main character, her name is Melody Ju. She's a video game producer, and she's tasked with releasing a mobile video game that is very controversial, and she is antagonized by everyone around her, both at work and online. And her, again, everybody at work, especially the MBA intern who happens to be the CEO's nephew. But yes, that's the same thing where you take this Korean American woman who is just expecting to, have a fun work environment and just get this game released, and she's literally bombarded by every possible obstacle left and right.
I must say that you in our writing group are like the calming force. So how does that correlate to you piling on all these obstacles onto your characters?
So I guess I don't know if calming, but I definitely observant. And I'm also
Patient?
middle child. So I think what exactly, maybe we need to have our own little mini group, Jessica. I think what I end up doing is, observing a lot, and I do internalize a lot as well. And then maybe that is correct, where I just find a way to put it in a book and create characters that have to handle these extraordinary circumstances and overcome them.
Reading both your books, your Korean families are kind of, in your books, are kind of bat sh crazy. Is that any comparison to your own family?
So there are hints of in both. I would say that they're more prominent and close to the ones that Loathe at First Sight. But they are there in the Perfect Escape. I think financially, our family was portrayed similarly, not exactly, and also that the relationship between the kids and the parents. I think that was very close to my family. Loathe at First Sight, it's a little bit more to me like a Korean family circus a bit, because there's no holding back on what the parents say, for example, and so there's a lot of back and forth between the two, and plus they are definitely have a lot of opinions on how she should live her life, and so that's definitely put in there. It reminds me of my parents because, like, I remember when I got married, I had a wedding registry, and they were even picking that apart, and I was like, it's just like dishes and like,
Wow.
coffee maker, and I had on there pizza maker, and then my dad said, "Don't make pizza, make baby." And I remember thinking, that'll go into a book someday. So that's pretty much the parents in Loathe at First Sight. So that's definitely something I did enjoy writing about. It was very therapeutic.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to open it up to a little more roundtable discussion. Namina, do you feel that the publishing industry is slowly but surely changing into involving more voices of color, more diverse voices?
Definitely. The industry has changed so much since like I was querying to now. Like literally in the past, I think like 2 to 3 years, we've just seen an explosion of more and more minorities being able to write young adult, specifically fantasy. And obviously, like we're not quite at the rates that we would want to be, but I do think that the industry is opening up because like when I started querying, like there was just like not really that many people of color out there like at all. And to see what has happened in the past couple of years is amazing.
Jessica, with that, do you feel a responsibility that you have this opportunity, you want to prove that Asian American, Korean American women can make it in this industry?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So do you feel a responsibility that your book has to be a success because there are other people that are going to follow in your shoes, hopefully?
I mean, I certainly hope it will, but I don't really think about it in that particular way. I think it's actually a little interesting because so I've been a Korean American my whole life, and it's never been cool. Like my entire childhood, it was like mostly trying to downplay my Koreanness. And now I'm coming into publishing right as Korean things are kind of hot. And it's very strange and a little bit uncomfortable for me because the same kids who probably made fun of my lunch are now like watching dramas on Netflix and talking about it. And it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird. So I feel a little sense of, I mean, I'm grateful that my book is coming out in a time when Korean culture is getting so much attention. However, I also hope that when that trend passes and something else is cool, you're still going to want to read my book. So I'm a little skeptical there. I don't know what'll happen. So I do feel a sense of these books have to appeal, in a universal way, and they have to have resonance so that when all this is over, it will still stand, So it's an interesting time for me.
Julie, when you were approaching representation and publishers, did you feel that you were categorized as an Asian American author and that you have to write Asian American themes and messages and stories?
I think that's it's a difficult topic difficult for people to decide right now, especially with the focus towards diversity. I think for me personally, what I wanted was what I never had when I was growing up, which was a character with black hair and dark eyes on a cover. Like for me, seeing a Japanese American girl on a cover meant it was a story written by a non-Japanese American person probably about World War II, and not about a girl just having fun, having an adventure, or going on a fantasy trip. Like it was none of that. So I think for me right now, it's a responsibility to write about the stories that I never got to have when I was growing up.
And Suzanne, do you, I don't know, do you actually feel a responsibility because you have 2 books right now? do you feel that a responsibility that you need to portray Asian American women in a positive manner?
I feel that, I don't know if it's pressure, but I do feel like um, I need to do my best to make this be seen by as many people uh, that need to see it. So similar to what Julie's talking about is, I didn't have these books growing up, so, or any of our books growing up. It would be nice to see people that reflect the people around me, and also just people that I want to read more about. And now that that's available, I definitely want to make sure that people can get access to it and see that, the characters in my book are quite different than some other Asian American characters you would see in other books, and understand that is there's diversity within Asian Americans, there's diversity within people of color, that there's that breadth, so that people will say, I see myself there, but I also want to read more. There's more out there for me.
Well, you bring up a good point, Jessica, with all that's going on right now. I mean, you can't deny what's going on. What kind of things are you doing to get your book into people's hands?
Well, it's been really lovely. The book community has been so awesome in kind of just banding together. And luckily with the rise of social media and the way that people hear about books, it's been kind of fun. Like I never learned how to I didn't even know what Instagram Live was like 2 weeks ago. And now I'm on, once or twice a week. And I'm sitting in with Zooms with I just sat in with some 4th or 5th grade boys reading my book, and I was in their book club the other day as a guest, and that was really fun. And I'm sitting in bookstore. I was in Decatur, Georgia, talking to their followers at their bookstore and virtually, and so it's interesting. I wonder when we're done sheltering in, if this will be the future, if this will be just the way we go about it from now on. But yeah, I'm just being really open. Like I said, a lot of these video things were very scary to me before, about a month ago, but I'm learning to embrace it and just trying to, meet people where I'm at. So, I mean, I'm an immigrant's daughter. I'm a hustler. Like, I'm going to do what I need to do to get my book out there. I don't care, so I'll learn what I need to learn. I'll be where I need to be. I'll even deal with the possibility of Zoom bombs, so.
Well, no one's Zoom bombed us yet, so, which is
yes,
good.
yes.
So Namina, how about you? What are you doing to get your book into people's hands?
Well, it's been weird in that my book is now pushed to 2021, so to February of next year. So I've actually slowed down on promoting my book just because it's so far away. But what I still do is that I like and comment on any social media post or anything that I find. I retweet. I use my Instagram stories. So I'm still putting it out there and but in more of a passive way than I was before.
How about your deadline? I mean, I know you have a second book. This is a series, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How are you working on a deadline? Are you still expected to keep that same deadline that was set before all this?
No, the deadline has been a little bit of a leeway, just because next year, and also because COVID has just basically messed up everybody's schedules and everybody's regular everything. I live in LA, but I came here to Georgia for 1 week to see family members, and I've been stuck here for over a month. So things are not what they normally are.
Oh, wow. I thought you had come back, because I heard that in another video that you were in Georgia, but I thought you came back to Los Angeles. Oh.
No, I am not risking getting COVID.
But you're in Georgia. Yeah. How about you, Julie? What are you doing to get your book into people's hands?
So for me, actually, more virtual events like Jess. And then my publisher has been doing a lot virtual as well to help because of everything going on and all the in-person events canceled. So before all the COVID things came up, my publisher was doing a great job. Little Brown Young Readers was doing a great job of getting the ARC out to events like trade conferences, things like that, and getting the ARCs into the hands of librarians, teachers, and booksellers. And then now I've seen my my publisher do things like virtual events where readers can directly try to win an ARC, or they'll do Goodreads giveaways and things like that. So they're really making an effort, which makes me feel more reassured, even though I won't be able to do as many person events.
How about you, Suzanne?
Pretty similar to everybody else. I was just a few weeks behind Jess, so I was just following her lead, watching her do all of the different events and knowing kind of what was available. She's right that a lot of the people in the book community have really reached out, and from all levels, like libraries have reached out, other established authors have reached out, other debut authors have reached out to do things together. And so there's various things that are happening where people are banding together and just having virtual events and just Twitter chats and things like that, where I think they're definitely trying to help folks out that didn't get to do any in-person events at all. And in addition to that, there's a repercussion of everything being on hold, is that a lot of the physical advanced reader copies are not being sent out as easily or at all, because whether it's a mail issue or they're stuck in warehouses or they're in somebody's office and they didn't get it out in time before they shut the office down. Things like that are happening. So a lot of things are sent by electronically now. There's a lot more digital focus on marketing. And so you just kind of have to go with it. Like tomorrow I'm doing Monday I'm doing a rom-com Twitter chat with my publishers. But my young adult publisher has a sister adult publisher, and they're going to cross promote this Twitter chat about romantic comedy. So again, that wasn't something that I think had been slated before, but now it's something that they're trying out.
Awesome. So with all the things that you all have been doing, what is the worst interview question that you've been asked besides this one? How about you, Namina?
Oh my gosh, that's like a difficult question. I don't know.
Because there's been so many.
There's been so many. I literally cannot think of one. I don't know. Like, I think most of my interviews thus far have gone like really well, and we've just had really great. So I couldn't think of one.
How about you, Julie?
I don't know of any bad interview questions. I feel like everyone who's been doing all these virtual events, especially, like, they've been so great at getting things arranged and organized that I've loved all the interviews that I've had.
I think you guys are being too nice. How about you, Jessica or Suzanne?
I'm not gonna bite on that. Are you kidding me? I'm too smart for that. I'm lucky. And I'm just happy to be talking to anyone who, just buy the book. So I'm not gonna throw anyone into the bus. And if everyone's been so kind, everyone's been so awesome. So I have no complaints here.
You gonna weigh in, Suzanne?
I can tell you the one that I couldn't answer because because of that, I didn't know if it was. I didn't know if I would ever be able to answer this question. But somebody asked me, and I guess it's a question that people ask. I just didn't know what to say. It was, if you could go to a desert island, what 3 things would you bring? And I got paralyzed. I don't know. Is this a water and shelter and food situation, or is this will I be able to breathe? Can I? Is there a shelter? I was asking all these questions, and they were like, no, it's not that complicated. Like, what would you bring? And then I was like, oh, I probably, and I said like a book and this and that. And then, I think it was just like a really embarrassing answer too. So it was just like a lot of chaos on Instagram Live. Luckily, they can just be gone in 24 hours.
So Zoom.
Never happened.
So Zoom gifted us that they won't cut it us off. So I'll give you a minute each to pitch your book, whatever you want to say, and we'll start with Julie.
All right, so I would say if you enjoy magical journeys with girls with a lot of pluck, but maybe not a lot of strength, but will do anything to make the distance, you may enjoy Eva Evergreen. And some people comp it to Kiki's Delivery Service or Arusha. And I think if you enjoy Ghibli and other things like Japanese inspired things like that, you'll also enjoy Eva Evergreen as well.
Jessica.
So I've been told that it's a really great sheltering in book because it's a fun, comforting book. I know we're all going through stuff and, you know, life is a little too real sometimes. So it's kind of like a nice escape to go into Yumi's world where you can be 11 years old again and you could look forward to a happy ending and get all the feels of that warm hug that we're all craving. So it's going to make you laugh. You may shed a tear or two, and I promise the ending will be comforting. So that's my book.
Suzanne?
Oh, me? Well, I have two books. I think we already talked about this one, the video game producer book. So I think I discussed it earlier, but it's basically the Korean-American video game producer who is tasked with releasing a video game that's super controversial, and she has to deal with all these people who are second-guessing her. And that one is out in August. And then this book is The Perfect Escape. It is aptly named because it's a good read for the sheltering in place. That one is about a Korean-American teenager who meets his dream girl at a zombie escape room where he works. They both need money desperately, and they have this brilliant idea of entering a survivalist competition together that has a huge cash prize. So, you know, what could go wrong, right? So that's a fun book. And I heard somebody comp it to Hunger Games, if Hunger Games were a rom-com, which I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny. So I guess that's all I'll say about that book. But that one is out now.
And Namina.
So The Gilded Ones is set in a world where every 16-year-old girl must go through a ritual to determine if they're pure or not. Pure is red blood, impure is gold blood. My hero Deka discovers that she's impure and is given a choice: either be sentenced to death or fight against the actual monsters invading her country for the emperor. And it has been described as if the Amazons of Wonder Woman were in the world of The Handmaid's Tale, and they decided they were not going to take it anymore.
Wonderful.
So, The Gilded Ones.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that we got to do this finally. We may not be in Anaheim for WonderCon, but we're WonderCon at home. And so I thank you all for being part of the panel. And to the viewers, these are great options. I hope you pick all of them to read while you're at home and even while you're on the go. So thank you for joining us, and pick up a book, especially these.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.